Hello, this is Learn Astrology Now for the week of August the 15th, 2010, and I'm Naomi Bennett. We always review the prior week since we do weekly analysis, and the biggest news item, I think, of all is the severe weather that has continued now for 3 to 4 weeks. China is still having massive mudslides that are inundating entire villages and towns, and they record that there's 1,300 deaths, but I suspect much more than that. Because there's total loss of life when there's a mudslide, because there's no oxygen when you're buried with mud like that. And Pakistan is still having continuous floods. It's affected 20 million people in their country. I think they're totaling 1,500 or 1,800 dead, but now there's talk that it's a possibility that it could topple the Pakistan government because of the severity that has happened. They had flash floods in Poland that caused loss of life, and the Russian fires have been going on for 3 weeks, and to the point that it was suffocating the people in Moscow. But now the fires are threatening the forests around Chernobyl, and that's a major concern because of radioactivity that could be lifted up into the air with the fire. So hopefully they get that under control. In the economic news, there was some new reports that the Japanese debt is actually in a greater crisis than most of the other countries, and their debt crisis is going on for 20 years. They haven't solved it, they haven't resolved it, and that it is their debt is actually 200% of GDP, which is gross domestic product, and it's double the debt of the United States or Germany as far as a percentage of the GDP. So the question is, do they default on their debt or inflate the currency, which they have been doing? And then there has been continuous rioting now for, I believe, 2 months of violent clashes that have happened in Kashmir, India, in protest for the Indian rule in Kashmir. And so last week there were 4 killed and 31 injured in massive riots that continue in that country. We had talked about the possibility of the markets falling. They finally did to a limited degree last week. Wednesday there was a 2% drop in the markets, and in total the Dow was down 400 points for the week, which would make that about a 4% drop. But you see that fluctuation on a fairly regular basis in the market, so it doesn't match nearly the catastrophic events that I was anticipating that was occurring in the last 3 weeks. So we have had severe floods, and these aspects sometimes relate to nuclear incidents. So we did have the Russian fires threatening the Chernobyl forest, but also Russia has announced that they will be delivering uranium to Iran to power their atomic power plants. And then there was an unusual event. I'm not sure if I could analyze it astrologically, which was that that in Canada, a Talmud ship landed in Vancouver, Washington. It had full of 490 refugees from Sri Lanka, because there's so many violence there against an ethnic minority, the Talmud, that it was rejected in Australia. So they have been on board that ship for 3 months, and they finally landed in Vancouver, Canada, and Canada's trying to decide what to do with them. And then a very interesting note, because we've had so much action with drug lords and violence down in Mexico, that the former president, Vicente Fox, was actually recommending that they legalize drugs in Mexico in order to control and contain the drug-related violence and the mafia activity that's going on there. And then a funny note that a JetBlue attendant was struck by a passenger, an angry passenger, and given the finger, and he lost it. So basically, he quit in a dramatic fashion, which is that he announced to the passengers how he felt about it, opened up a beer, and opened up the emergency chute and exited the plane through the emergency chute. So now he's a hero in the United States. Jimmy Fallon made a song about him, but he's also being sued for various legal violations. So we're going to stop the video at this time to go over the chart of the week and talk about the aspects that are going to be happening this week. Hello, this is the chart of the week for August the 15th, 2010. Please note that we still have a Saturn opposition Uranus-Jupiter aspect across this chart square Pluto, but it's no longer exact. The critical period is over, but we are forming a Sun opposition Neptune aspect. So on Sunday, it's at 5 degrees. And we also have Venus conjunct Mars square the lunar node. So what does that mean? We are still having stress aspects in the United States and around the world. I suspect we will have still severe weather, but it should diminish this week. However, I think that personal relationships can be difficult. There can be conflict. There can be surprised announcements and changes, and that I suspect that this is a great week for movies, for oil, for creativity. So that should be positive this week. Particularly note that Monday is a quarter moon, and that particularly the Sun opposition Neptune, it starts at a 4 degree, 5 degree applying, and by Thursday it becomes exact. So pay attention to the news. Don't believe everything that you hear. I imagine that there's going to be a fair amount of deception during this time, that we aren't given the true facts, that there's a lot that is unsaid. However, on the creative area, it could be a very positive time for entertainment and the arts. And pay a particular interest on Thursday, the 19th, that it becomes within 1 degree, and on Friday, that Sun-Neptune aspect becomes exact. Now, during this whole week, we have Mars conjunct Venus. And so there can be a fair degree of personal conflict where you can have arguments with your loved ones, the people close to you, your friends, and there is a need for connection and personal contact. But on the other side, it can be a great week for sexual activity, of deepening your relationship and having some very intense feelings with each other. So with that, I think we will go back to the end of the tape and have a good week. So the key words this week is watch out for deception. It's a great time for the arts, going to movies, for artistic endeavors. Don't believe necessarily what you hear in the news. There is a level of deception, of hiding the actual facts this week. And take a deep breath, relax. The most intense period that we have this year has just passed. There'll be some other aspects further on in the year, but at least we're on smoother sailing now than we had been in the past 4 weeks. So this is Naomi Bennett from Learn Astrology Now, signing off.